Hello, and thank you for tuning in to our first Jobs Talk with Eightfold AI. Our Chief Economist, Sonia Khan, and our Senior Director of Product Marketing, Jason Serrato, will share real-time insights on the JOLTS report, jobs report, and other hot topics in talent today. Grab a coffee, sit back, and spend the next 20 minutes listening to what's currently top of mind for HR leaders. With that, I'll hand it over to Jason Serrato.
Thank you so much, Callie. This is so much fun. Two things I really love are talking shop, especially about HR, and having the opportunity to learn. So thank you for everyone that's tuning in to join us, and happy Friday. It's always good to get together on a Friday, but especially when it's a jobs report Friday. So excited to talk to Sonia, our Eightfold Chief Economist, about what we learned in the jobs report today. How you doing, Sonia?
Hi, Jason. Thanks for having me. Excited to dive into this report, which wasn't as shocking as they usually are, but still a good one.
Well, shocking or non-shocking, there's always something to learn. So what did we learn today?
So the U.S. labor market showed signs of moderate growth in March. So payrolls grew by 236,000, which was slightly below expectations. And the unemployment remained around the same. It's hovering around 3.5%. Last month, it was 3.6%. To be honest, I thought that rate was going to go up by a little bit, but it's hovering around there for the past few months. So that's what we're seeing. And yeah, the good news is that more people are coming back into the labor market. So they're going from being unemployed back into working. And that is driven by the increase in wages. That is enticing them to come back in.
So as I was looking at the news this morning and trying to decipher it with my knowledge of how these things work, I think some of my key takeaways was that return of the able workforce into the labor market. And then there was another discussion around the percentage of that audience that is like the prime working force. Yep. And how, unemployment is so low and everyone seems to be coming back. I also saw there was another report, I think during the course of the week, around the number of job postings that are out there in the market. And it said it was the biggest drop in job postings in the last year or two. How does all this make sense?
So you're referring to the JOLTS report, which came out on Tuesday. So just for our audience to know, the JOLTS report was from February and the jobs report was from March. And here we are on April 7th. So it's a 2-month lag for JOLTS. It's a 1-month lag for the jobs report. But to get back to your question, job openings have declined by 1.3 million over the past 2 months. That's 6% over the last month. And so we're seeing that finally, much to what the Fed would like to see, we're finally seeing a slowdown in hiring and a slowdown in job openings by employers. And I think that's really due to financial sector uncertainty and overall economic uncertainty. Are we going to see a recession or not? And that uncertainty is causing employers to pull back on hiring.
So as I was thinking about this morning, I do some of my best thinking when I'm either in the shower or driving. And I did both of those things this morning, so I had lots of time to think. With how this is measured and, the rapid pace of change in the world, I know uncertainty weighs in on these things, and I know the financial scenarios that are going on in the world weighs in on these things, but is it also, we've had a lot of discussion in the last few months around ChatGPT and automation and the use of AI and changing the way jobs are done and the way work is designed. But we also have had a lot of discussion around internal mobility and talent marketplaces and filling jobs very differently, or even moving more towards jobless workplaces where it's more focused around, internal project teams. So do you think all of this is weighing in on kind of the ambiguity a little bit to some of these reports? Or one of the things I often talk about is how I often pay attention to the reports, but then a few weeks later, there's usually always an update or a correction. Is that weighing in on kind of how these reports are coming out in the the last year or so?
So I'll take that in piecemeal. So the first part is ChatGPT or generative AI causing these job openings to decline? And I think the answer is not yet. It's really too soon to tell how exactly are jobs going to be affected by ChatGPT on a real life basis. So, although we can kind of assume that, of course, there's going to be some interaction with AI, with the way how the use of these tools, these AI tools, and then how humans will interact. But will those humans actually no longer be needed is a question that's still up in the air. And I think that's just a longer term discussion. So I don't think we're seeing that in the numbers yet. And then on the flip side of that, as you asked, is this because of some of the other talent marketplace intelligence tools that we have coming out? And are we seeing some numbers skewed because of those? And I think that leads me to really talk about the BLS, particularly, just because I worked there for around a decade. But really, maybe it's time for government statistics to change how they phrase questions and how they measure certain statistics. And I think there was a recent article in the New York Times, I believe, that said the Bureau of Labor Statistics had remote jobs as measured in a certain way. And then there were some outside studies from universities measuring the amount of remote jobs, and they had a completely different statistic. And I think that really comes down to, are government statistics, one, still the most accurate? Are they still measuring the economy in the best way possible in this time of future of work and the rate of change? And are we keeping up with those changes in the government statistics? And then alongside that, what can we change, and how can we change those government statistics overall to measure our economy correctly?
I think that's there, so intriguing, and there's so much to think about there. And you and I have talked about this over the last few months or so, especially when you think about digital transformation and in the world in which we work, HR transformation and talent transformation. I think it does require you to look at your metrics and how you're measuring things, because in many cases, our metrics and our measures are aimed at how we've done things historically, and things are changing so rapidly that they're being done differently, they're being delivered differently, they're occurring on different schedules and different arrangements. And I think one of the hypotheses that I've had, just as like an armchair labor economist, is I think in many cases we're measuring history more than reality in some of these things. I know, for example, there's always a measure of kind of contingent workers. And I think today contingent workers aren't a ubiquitous group. Right? There's contractors and freelancers and gig workers and 1099s and LLCs and all these different things. And if you're trying to get your arms around kind of what that is and how it surfaces in the workforce, it's really hard to measure one way.
Yeah. And speaking of, today's report actually talked a little bit about the increase in those temporary help services sector jobs. So that increased by 65,000 jobs, according to today's jobs report. And what that really indicates is that the demand for contingent workers is expected to rise in the coming years. And that's actually something that we did here at Eightfold with our predictions. And we predicted that the US is going to see an increase of 26% of contingent workers in 2023.
So that leads me to our ongoing discussions around the importance of lifting the view for talent leaders to more of a total workforce and total talent management kind of initiative, where it's not just your employees, it's the entire talent network of people coming through your doors or working on your network if you're working virtually or hybrid. That, it's not enough just to say, well, who has a badge? It's
Yeah.
actually, who interacts with my company and what work are they doing for me today? But I also kind of just think about the uncertainty of these things. And I know last November was when a lot of the financial crisis and stock market and shift started to really surface. And at the end of last year, from November to December, contract workers were the first things to be cut.
Yeah.
Right. And there was this big decrease over the last quarter of 2022. So now we're seeing there's this big increase. I think, is that part of just the wave of dealing with uncertainty? Or is this, again, thinking about other factors like organizations looking at skills a different way, or maybe industries and organizations that are pivoting into new types of work? I think all of this is maybe a little bit of a perfect storm, but what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's all of the above, to be honest. I think when you have economic uncertainty, who are the most easiest workers to get rid of? And they're usually those contract or contingent workers. So that's maybe what we saw at the end of last year. But then simultaneously, I think we also, talent leaders were also having a hard time finding the right talent in the last few years, in recent years. And so maybe that's why they increased their load of contingent workers to begin with, and then cut them when uncertainty rose at the end of last year. And then what I'm thinking is, in the future, perhaps because of the difficulty in hiring and the difficulty in finding really good talent, maybe contingent worker is the right way to go. You can kind of test, is this worker going to be a good fit for the team? Are they exactly what we want? Maybe it's a short-term innovative project that they're looking for, and instead of keeping someone full-time, they can keep someone for a shorter amount of time, just for that work, and not keep them on a full-time payroll. So I think there's many more uses to contingent workers nowadays than were in the past, and maybe HR and talent leaders are seeing that for the first time now.
Well, here at Eightfold, we have our talent intelligence platform that's powered by our AI engine. But on top of that, we have a talent acquisition offering, a talent management offering, and a talent flex offering that allows all of those audiences to kind of come together within the same view for talent leaders to operationalize and strategize and, hire and retain and develop. But it's this building up this capability to expand the view to this total talent. And we've been working with leading organizations that are taking on this total talent or elastic talent type of approach. And by having this activity in one system, some of the things they're starting to figure out are, what is our core strength in terms of skills and intellectual property within our organization? And what are things that we're seeing in our industry that we may want to go out and recruit? But then also, what are some things that we don't necessarily want to invest in as our core IP, but we need to get
Right.
work done or to bring us from here to there? Let's supplement that with, contingent workers and contractors who specialize in a certain area that we don't specialize in. And I think now, with this capability and this expanded view, people are really starting to look at their talent and strategize around their talent from that perspective, where just as recently as a few years, and even in many organizations still today, there has been this wall of kind of this separation of those audiences. And for where we're going in the future, I think more and more these walls are going to start to crumble and these worlds are going to start to meld.
Yeah, I mean, it's about time. I think having a holistic view of your talent is something that's really important. And we have the capabilities, and we have the AI to tell you exactly who is in your workplace, what kind of skills do they have, what skills are you looking to expand upon, what's the strategy of your group or your overall overall strategy for your company as a whole, and then you can kind of decide who you want to keep on as full-time workers and who you want to contract out with contingent workers. So
now, I know, you've been with Eightfold now for a little while, and you've worked on some research using our data and some of our AI insights, and you also talked about some of the things that came out of the monthly report today. Over your time here, is there anything that you've seen or anything that sticks out in the jobs report compared to some of the things you've been finding in your research that you're just so interested in, or you're going to dig in more in future reports? Or what are some things that just stick out, to you now that, you have this experience from the Bureau of Labor, but then now coming to AI and having these AI insights?
Yeah, so something that stuck out today was actually the Black unemployment rate, and it fell to the lowest level since records actually started being collected in 1972, and that's it hit 5% today. So really what that means is, for the first time, Black unemployment is at 5%. It's never been so low before. And on the flip side of that, Black labor force participation rate is also at the highest that we've seen it since 2008 at 64.1%. So that's a significant milestone for the Black community and the US economy as a whole. I'm a strong proponent of what's the saying? Like high tide raises all boats. Is that what it is?
Rising tide lifts all boats. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. So I really think that's the case. This is good for our economy. This is good for as wages rise, we see more people coming into the workforce. So that's a positive. And what we've also seen in our research is that that's actually, if you take DE&I and take company profits, there's actually a correlation there. And I will tell you exactly that figure, but it is increasing the share of Black or Hispanic employees by 10% can actually increase an organization's employee retention rate by 4.4%. So, if a company focuses on DE&I, they will have better retention, which is key in today's society, I think, with such a high turnover rate.
And I know here at Eightfold, one of the things we're passionate about is removing unnecessary barriers to employment and taking a skills-based approach at looking and evaluating and selecting talent. And I think, we partner with organizations every day that are trying to accomplish this in their organization. And we even partner with organizations that are dedicated to helping Black Americans find employment without college degrees based on their skills. So it's exciting to see, that results in the monthly report. But it's very encouraging, with the work that we do and what drives us here at Eightfold and our mission. This has been so wonderful. I could talk to you all day, and I often bother you about these things, but this is a lot to think about, especially over a quick cup of coffee on a Friday morning. I got to get back to work. I'm sure you got to get back to work. So thank you so much for taking the time and giving us your thoughts on the results of the monthly report. And back to you, Callie.
Thanks so much, Jason. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I can't wait to do this next month.
Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you to Sonia and Jason for sharing your insights. We hope you'll join us on May 5th for the next Jobs Talk with Eightfold AI. Until next time.